Just wrote this talk, so bear with me on the notes. A few years ago, a friend of mine, Elion, asked me why I love databases, and it took me a few years of thinking about that to come up with an answer that satisfied me. And it was really about the ability to understand how things work so I could take them apart and put them back together and make them do what I want. And that's how I express creativity in the world. Expressing creativity in the world is a vital part of being who we are as humans. All forms of creative expression are equally valid, whether you choose to play music or sing or dance or write or art or be a nerd. These are all important parts of expressing our agency, to have power in the world. Creativity is a form of self-actualization to achieve our full potential, and so we really need this as humans. It's how we say, I'm alive and I choose to not just exist, but to actually be alive. It's what I want for me and it's what I want for you, and that's why I founded a company. And founding a company 3 years ago was a personal decision to magnify my personal mission for what I want to achieve in the world. To give others what I wanted for myself. A life of purpose, the life of purpose and fulfillment that I seek to live for myself, as well as the recognition that being a nerd is actually an honorable profession, just like being a sculptor. So what's it like being a founder? Being a founder is extremely stressful and difficult. Everybody wants a piece of you. There are many different things pulling on all of you from all sorts of different directions. There's not really words to describe it. It's kind of a roller coaster from fear to joy and elation and back again. And in particular, there's no comfort zone. I've basically taken myself out of my comfort zone and denied it to myself. I'm a supportive person. Now I'm called upon to be demanding of people. And there's a whole bunch of things that kind of compound, like the inability to remember things under a lot of stress and under a lot of multitasking, which I don't do very well. And those things can turn into a negative spiral that kind of defeats and self-reinforces and goes downwards. Sleep is really, really hard. I sometimes wake up at 2:30 in the morning with jacked up on adrenaline, my pulse racing, thinking fearful, intrusive thoughts that I can't get out of my head. I know that being awake at 2:30 is not solving the problems, but that doesn't help me go back to sleep. If you're interested in some of these experiences, Ben Horowitz wrote a pretty good book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and in particular, there's an essay called The Struggle, which is online that you can read, and that comes as close as I've experienced to someone else describing this. But being a CEO is a very unnatural experience. It's recognizing that what's called of you is not who you naturally are, and so you continually engage in a process of self-erosion and self-building, amputating parts that you don't want and growing new ones. And this is not just like life hacking and self-improvement and tips for productivity. This is completely overwhelming. It's a brutal experience, and coming through it on the other side means a complete commitment. There is no going back. It's also, there's a lot to lose in talking about it, which is part of why I wanted to talk about it tonight, because when you're a founder and you show the slightest hint of fear or self-doubt, you might lose a customer, you might lose an investor, you might lose an employee. So people don't tend to talk about it. CEOs and founders in particular tend to struggle through these things in isolation. We're not alone in these struggles, but we do it in isolation and loneliness. And if this describes your experience, I would really like to invite you to reach out to me and talk about it. Also, some of you may think that we're talking about imposter syndrome. This is not imposter syndrome. It's a natural response to being put into an unnatural position, to being forced into a square peg into a round hole. And if you have this response, it means that you're a normal, healthy human being. You're not damaged goods. There's a couple of things that I do on a daily basis to try and keep myself a little bit more sane and balanced. One is I begin every day with prayer and meditation and a dedication to do my best for the day in the service of something higher than myself. And then I go and hustle hard all day long. And at the end of the day, I forgive myself for everything that I failed to achieve that I wanted to achieve in the morning. Another big thing is meditation. I've had several people teach me and coach me with meditation for many years. What has worked best for me has actually turned out to be a book called The Headspace Project. Get some Headspace. It's also an app, and that's really been working pretty well for me. Asking for help is super important too. I've asked for and received help from a number of other founders, many of whom are not aware of the depth and profundity of the impact that they've had on my life. I encourage you again to reach out to me. And finally, I have a team around me, not just the employees who are better at their jobs than I am, but also I have investors, advisors, mentors, all of those other founders, and a professional coach who helps make every day just a little bit better. And at the end of it all, even though this is really difficult, I believe that the product, the company, and the team that I've built serve to further my mission to create a world that's better, with more justice, more equality, and in which we can all be nerds and really enjoy the lives that we have for ourselves. And the highs are high and the lows are low, but I get back more than I give, and so that's why I do it in the end.